All right, mailbag day. You know, we have a mailbag question today, which kind of hits to the core of everything that we've been talking about, or at least one of the cores of everything we've been talking about. And the question is, when you're making political decisions, what's more important, the character of the person you're voting for or the results you're looking for? And I think that this is really some of the stuff we're dealing with all the sexual material, but it's also something else. There's a great line in the poet T.S. Eliot. Let me see if I just want to make sure I get it exactly right. It's from his Four Quartets, which is his lesser known poem because it was written after he converted to Christianity. So, of course, the critics love The Wasteland because it's about the wasteland, how meaningless everything is. But they never go to Four Quartets, which is a beautiful, very personal poem he wrote after his conversion. And at one point, he's listening to the birds in this garden, and he says, the bird says to him, "Go, go, go," says the bird. "Humankind cannot bear very much reality." And one of the things we are seeing now, right now, is that Trump has mastered the fact that the conversations that we have, so many of the political conversations that we have, don't take place in reality. They have nothing to do. I mean, Scott Adams, who we spoke to a couple of days ago, he's been talking about this, that people don't act rationally, but it's more than that. See, this world that we are in, that you and I are in right now, this world of commentary, of radio, people talking and giving their opinions, doesn't exist in reality. This is not reality. In this world, there's moral certainty. In this world, outrage sells because it makes you feel so good about yourself. In this world, you know there are good guys and bad guys, and people will tell you Donald Trump is the great man or he's an evildoer and all this stuff. None of that is true. None of it is true. But truth, with its nuance, with its shades of gray, with its difficult moral decisions that taint you when you make them, that world is not so popular. It doesn't sell as well. I can tell you this because I've been living in that world and writing that world all my life, and I can tell you, one of the biggest selling thriller writers, I mean, I've written crime fiction all my life, one of the biggest selling crime writers in the world, and I'm not going to name him, is one of the worst writers. And he is one of the worst writers. Listen, there are some great best-selling crime writers. I'm not saying anything about that. But there's this one guy, and and I hear he's a lovely person, and his books sell by the millions. And I have never been able to get past page 10. Why? Because the villains in his piece are so villainous, and the good guys are the good guys are always kissing their grandmothers and bringing them pie and all this. And I just think, gag me with a spoon, But this is what we're all hungry for, and what Trump has figured out, as we're going to see today, we're going to talk about today, is he's figured out that he can play both things at the same time. He can play a different game in reality than he's playing in this kind of, what will we call it? The sort of make-believe-o-verse, the make-believe, the fantasy verse. He's playing two different games with his tweets and with his actions, and it's working out really well for him, because while everybody's commenting on hysterically, he is on a roll. He is doing really, really well right now. That's what Trump is doing, right? And everybody's shocked. Oh my God, now the story's about Trump. What a terrible thing. He tweeted this, he tweeted that. It's like, it's not taking place in reality. What is taking place in reality is what happened yesterday with the tax reform bill, which is that it passed through a major committee procedure to go into a vote, and senators who had said that they were going to oppose it, the guy from Wisconsin and Bob Corker, who Trump had this feud, are saying, nah, we kind of want to get to yes here. We want to do this thing. So while everybody's screaming and yelling about Trump acting in this kind of make-believe world that we're all in right this moment, we're living in this world right this moment where there are good guys and bad guys and moral certainties and all this stuff, that Trump is playing in that world, but he's working in this other world. He completely trolled. He's trolling everybody. He is trolling everybody. He trolled Chuck and Nancy yesterday. This really did crack me up. He invited Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi to come and talk to him to negotiate about the deadline that's coming up with the funding the government, right? The government shuts down, I can't remember, December 8th, I think it is. It shuts down December 8th unless they fund it. This usual thing that keeps coming up and keeps coming up. And he invited them to a meeting, and then he tweeted, "Meeting with Chuck and Nancy today about keeping government open and working. Problem is, they want illegal immigrants flooding into our country unchecked, and they're weak on crime, and they want to substantially raise taxes. I don't see a deal." So Chuck and Nancy refused to show up, and Trump has the meeting with Republicans, and he has chairs on each side of him that are empty. And just like you do at a debate when the person fails to show up, and they had little nameplates, you know, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi. So Chuck, let's start with Schumer. Schumer comes out and he makes this statement about Trump's tweet. That's crying Chuck. Now I'll play a different Chuck cut and see if you can tell which one is the real Schumer.
With his tweet this morning, President Trump made sure that today's meeting is nothing but a photo op. These issues are far too serious for these kinds of games. Mr. President, it's time to stop tweeting and start leading.
Yes, you know, I'm not sure who's winning this, because now here's the actual meeting, right? And the press shows up before the meeting, and here is Trump. This is cut 2 on the no-shows.
The other thing, they want tax increases, and we want major tax decreases. So they decided not to show up. They've been all talk, and they've been no action. And now it's even worse. Now it's not even talk. So they're not showing up for the meeting. I will say this, in light of the missile launch, probably they'll be here fairly quickly, or at least discussions will start taking place fairly quickly.
Right, so to me, he just made Chuck and Nancy look utterly ridiculous. And like I said, meanwhile, in real life, okay, the AP is now reporting the U.S. economy expanded at 3.3% annual pace in the third quarter. That's the fastest in 3 years. Like I said, the Republicans took a significant step toward passing their sweeping tax overhaul on Tuesday. And if you read the New York Times, a former newspaper, they're going insane over this tax thing. You know, talking a little bit more about this tax thing, talking about the difference between reality and the fantasy of the commentariat world, one of the problems the Republicans always have with taxes is that the reality is the tax cuts tend to make the economy explode. They do great things for the economy. Trickle down, everybody keeps saying, no, trickle down doesn't work. It actually does. It always has. Why? Because you cut the businesses' taxes and the businesses thrive. So much money is offshore, has left the country, not only because of the taxes, but because of the unpredictable regulations of the Obama administration. He was constantly churning out new regulations, and the agencies were just constantly sitting on business. But the minute that you want to cut the taxes, the left starts talking about they're cutting taxes for the rich. Well, the rich are the people who pay taxes. And Ted Cruz was debating Sanders the other day, and he had a perfect description of what this means. This is cut number 1.
Democrats have one talking point on taxes. It's a tax cut for the rich, and they say it over and over and over again in response to everything. The most important thing for you to know when you're at home is when they say rich, they mean taxpayer. Every time they say rich, they mean taxpayer. Why is it? Because the very rich, there aren't enough of them. You know, Bernie ran for president. He rolled out a tax plan. His tax plan was a massive tax increase. If you took every single person in America making over $1 million and you taxed them 100% of their income, you took every penny they earned, you came in jackboots and confiscated it, it would pay 8% of the cost of Bernie's tax plan.
See, Ted Cruz is a master of reality. Ted Cruz masters reality. The reason he's not president is he can't master the fantasy verse that Trump has mastered so well, because Trump realizes that he can get people to scream about some stupid tweet about Chuck Scarborough and get this tax plan past the talking point, the absurd talking point that it's a tax cut for the rich. All tax cuts are tax cuts for the rich because, as Cruz points out, what they mean by rich are taxpayers. They think your money belongs to them and they're going to give you some of it. We think your money belongs to you and they're taking some of it for necessary stuff. You know, one of the things that one of the problems they have with Republicans, I guess Bob Corker is one of them, who says this is going to blow a hole in the budget, and what they want is a trigger that if it does blow a hole in the budget, if the economy doesn't recover, these tax cuts will go away. They want a trigger built into the tax reform bill. And that sounds like a good idea, but it's a bad idea because the companies that will be bringing their money back into America are going to say, well, wait, if this is only going to last 5 or 6 years, I can't make this big transfer. They want to be able to depend on these tax cuts.